You ever have one of those moments where everything in life comes crashing down, but you just sit there, calm as ever, because you already saw it coming? That was me, sitting in a cold, sterile interrogation room, watching two detectives fumble around like they had something on me. "Lucas Worthington," the older one said, flipping through his file like he hadn't rehearsed this. "You know why you're here?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "I assume it has something to do with my wife." My wife. The words felt foreign even saying them. Ashley had stopped being my wife the moment I caught her sneaking around with Brad Sidley, the smuggest piece of garbage I'd ever met. But the law didn't care about that. On paper, we were still married. The younger detective leaned in, trying to look intimidating. "Ashley Worthington and Brad Sidley were found dead last night. Brutally murdered." I kept my face neutral. Not surprised, not indifferent, just the right amount of confusion. I needed them to work for this. "And you were seen arguing with both of them multiple times," the older one added. "Not to mention, you were in the middle of a divorce with Ashley. That's a lot of motive." Motive? Oh, they didn't even know the half of it. Ashley was never the woman I thought she was. When we first got together, she played the perfect role. Sweet, charming, supportive. But as soon as the ring was on her finger, the real Ashley came out. Turns out, she didn't want me, she wanted the money. The house, the luxury, the easy life. And once she got comfortable, she got reckless. Late nights with friends, sudden interest in dressing up for the gym, phone glued to her hand. I saw it all. And then came Brad Sidley. Loud, obnoxious, thought he was the smartest guy in the room. We had fought, twice, in fact. First time was at a charity event, where he made a little too many jokes about how Ashley had upgraded with him. Second time was at a bar, after I caught him running his mouth about how I was too dumb to see what was happening under my own roof. "Funny," I said, looking the younger detective in the eye. "Last I checked, arguing with someone wasn't a crime." "It is when both of them turn up dead," the detective shot back. I smirked. "Then I guess you'll have no trouble proving I did it." Silence. They wanted a reaction from me, something to latch onto, but I wasn't giving them a thing. "Mr. Worthington," the older detective finally said, flipping a page in his file. "We have evidence placing you at the crime scene. Your DNA was found." I chuckled, shaking my head. "No, you don't." The younger detective stiffened. "Excuse me. You don't have my DNA there." "Because I wasn't there." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "And you know what? You just messed up. Now, I know you're bluffing. If you really had evidence, we wouldn't be having this little chat. You'd be booking me right now." The older detective shot a look at his partner, annoyed. Good. They were losing control. I sat back, letting the silence settle. "Are we done here?" The younger detective was seething, but the older one sighed and closed the file. "For now." I stood up just as the door opened. My lawyer, Ralph, strolled in, calm as ever. "Mr. Worthington," he nodded, ignoring the detectives. "Let's go." As we walked out, I could feel their eyes burning into my back. They wanted me, badly. But they weren't getting me. Outside, Ralph adjusted his tie. "They've got nothing. But you already knew that." I gave him a small smile. "Of course. Because I had an alibi. An airtight one. A video proving I was nowhere near the crime scene. And yet, as I stepped into my car, one thought lingered. What if I was responsible? And they'd never be able to prove it." Ralph and I walked out of the station like we owned the place. He was muttering something about police incompetence, but I barely heard him. My mind was on the two bodies lying in a morgue somewhere, Ashley and Brad. Dead. It should have felt like a victory. Justice, in some twisted way. But all I felt was a strange sense of calm. "You're lucky," Ralph said as we reached my car. "That younger detective was ready to tear you apart. But they've got nothing." I smirked, unlocking the door. "They never would have had anything." He gave me a sharp look. "Lucas, if there's something you need to tell me, There's not. I cut him off smoothly. I told you, I was nowhere near the crime scene. And I have proof. That proof was sitting on a hard drive in my safe. A high-definition, time-stamped video of me sitting in my office, drinking whiskey and watching TV, an entire night's worth of footage. No gaps, no cuts, no way to argue against it. Good, Ralph said, rubbing his temple. Because if you were involved in this in any way, I can't help you. I patted his shoulder. Then it's a good thing I'm innocent. He sighed but didn't push it. Lay low for now. Even if they have nothing, they'll be watching you. I nodded, but I wasn't worried. Let them watch. By the time I got home, the sun was setting. My house, a sleek modern place on the outskirts of the city, felt eerily quiet. Ashley used to fill it with noise, always talking on the phone, always making plans, always pretending she cared. Now, just silence. I poured myself a drink, letting the ice clink against the glass. My phone buzzed. Ralph again. I ignored it. Instead, I pulled out my laptop and accessed the security footage from my office. There I was, sitting in my chair, whiskey in hand, at exactly 9:42 p.m., the estimated time of death. Ironclad. I closed the laptop and leaned back. They'd never touch me. But still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating against the nightstand. I groaned, rolling over to check the screen. Ralph. Again. I sighed and answered. What now? You're all over the news. His voice was tight, controlled. Turn on the TV. I sat up, rubbing my face before grabbing the remote. The screen flickered to life, and there it was, my house, my name, and a bold headline. Murder mystery. Lucas Worthington questioned in double homicide. A reporter stood in front of the police station, speaking with exaggerated urgency. Authorities confirmed that Lucas Worthington, a wealthy businessman, was brought in for questioning in connection to the brutal murders of his estranged wife, Ashley Worthington, and her alleged lover, Bradley Sidley. While no charges have been filed, sources say Worthington was seen arguing with both victims days before their deaths. They cut to a shot of Ashley, a carefully chosen, innocent-looking picture. Big smile, bright eyes. Then Brad, smug even in death. I exhaled sharply. Let me guess. They leaked it. Of course they did, Ralph muttered. They're trying to pressure you, make you sweat. And now the vultures are gonna circle. As if on cue, my doorbell rang. I walked to the window and peeked out. A cluster of reporters stood outside my gate, cameras ready, shouting my name. Great, I muttered. What do you want me to do? Stay inside. Say nothing. Ralph's voice was firm. No statements, no comments. Let me handle it. I hung up and took a slow breath. They were pushing me, trying to break me. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. I wasn't some panicked fool who'd make mistakes. I had a plan, and I was going to see it through. I ignored the reporters. Let them shout, let them speculate. I wasn't giving them anything. Instead, I went about my morning like it was any other day. Coffee, a shower, flipping through emails. The world wanted chaos, but I refused to give it to them. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. Lucas, a familiar voice said the moment I answered. I froze. Miss me. It was her. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. But no, there was no mistaking that voice. Miranda, Ashley's best friend. And the only person in this entire mess who might have been worse than Ashley. Miranda, I said slowly, gripping the phone tighter. What do you want? She laughed, soft and mocking. Oh, don't sound so tense. I just heard the news and thought I'd check in on my favorite widower. I clenched my jaw. Miranda had always been trouble. The type to whisper in Ashley's ear, encouraging her worst behavior. She loved stirring the pot, playing games, and getting under people's skin. I'm fine, I said flatly. Goodbye, Miranda. Wait, she purred. Aren't you the least bit curious why I'm calling?
No.
But I knew she'd tell me anyway. See, Ashley and I had no secrets, Miranda continued. And I know things, Lucas. Things the cops would love to hear. Things about you. I exhaled sharply. You don't know anything. Don't I? Her voice was sweet as poison. I know what you wanted to do to Brad. I know how much you hated Ashley. I know. I cut her off. If you had anything real, you'd be talking to the police. Not me. She went quiet for a beat. Then, a low chuckle. Maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to see how badly you wanted to keep me quiet. There it was. Miranda wasn't here for justice. She was here to play. To blackmail me. I pinched the bridge of my nose. How much? Oh, Lucas, she sighed. It's not just about money. I want to talk. In person. Say, tonight. I didn't answer. Think it over, she cooed. But don't take too long. Otherwise, I might get chatty. The line went dead. I lowered the phone, my pulse steady. Miranda thought she had power over me. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Miranda was a snake. I knew that the moment I met her. The kind of woman who enjoyed control, not because she needed it, but because she liked watching people squirm. And right now, she thought I was the one squirming. She was wrong. I poured myself a drink, staring out at the city skyline as I thought it over. Meeting her was risky. But letting her run her mouth? That was worse. I picked up my phone and sent a single text. Where and when? A response came almost instantly. Midnight. The old bar on 5th. You know the one. I smirked. Of course, she'd pick that place. It was where she and Ashley used to drag me for double dates. Back when Ashley still bothered pretending she loved me. I pocketed my phone and exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a meeting. This was a test. And I was going to pass it with flying colors. Midnight came fast. I pulled up to the bar, killing the engine as I scanned the parking lot. A few scattered cars, but no sign of Miranda yet. Inside, the place was nearly empty. Just a few late-night drinkers and a tired-looking bartender cleaning glasses. I took a seat in the back, keeping my eyes on the entrance. A few minutes later, Miranda waltzed in like she owned the place. She spotted me immediately, a slow smile spreading across her lips as she sauntered over. You actually came. I leaned back, studying her. Same red lipstick, same sharp eyes. Always looking for a weakness. You wanted to talk, I said flatly. So talk. She slid into the seat across from me, tapping her nails against the table. You know, Lucas, I was shocked when I heard the news. Poor Ashley. Poor Brad. Such a tragedy. I didn't react. She tilted her head. But you seem awfully calm for a grieving husband. I gave her a slow, deliberate smile. And you seem awfully interested for someone who hated Ashley just as much as I did. That got to her. A flicker of irritation crossed her face before she masked it with another smirk. Touché. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Let's cut the games. I know you had something to do with this. I sipped my drink. Do you? She nodded. And the cops? They might not have enough yet, but they will. Unless. Unless what? I asked, playing along. She smiled, slow and deliberate. Unless I make sure they don't. There it was. The price. How much? I asked. Her smile widened. Oh, Lucas. I don't want money. I raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want? She traced the rim of her glass, watching me. A favor. One I'll call in when the time is right. I let the silence stretch, pretending to think it over. But in reality, I already knew my answer. Because Miranda had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She thought I was desperate. She thought I was trapped. But what she didn't realize, she wasn't the one in control. I was. And this game was only just beginning. Miranda sat there, watching me like a cat that had cornered a mouse. Only, she had no idea she was the mouse. I swirled the last sip of whiskey in my glass, keeping my voice steady. A favor, huh? She smiled. That's right. One small favor, whenever I ask. And in return, my lips stay sealed. No cops, no reporters, no trouble. I let the words hang between us, pretending to think it over. In reality, I was already 3 steps ahead. Fine, I said, leaning forward. I'll agree to your little deal. She looked surprised. Just for a second. Then, that smug grin returned. Smart man. I smirked. But before I do, let me ask you something. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what's that? I leaned in, lowering my voice. You sure you weren't involved in all this? Her smile froze. I tilted my head. I mean, think about it. You knew all about Ashley's affair. You were always in her ear, stirring the pot. And now, right after she and Brad end up dead, you're suddenly in a position to blackmail me. I chuckled. That's a little convenient, don't you think? Her fingers tightened around her glass. That's ridiculous. I shrugged. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you had just as much reason to want them gone as I did. Her jaw clenched, but I wasn't done. And let's not forget, you were the last person to text Ashley that night, weren't you? I tilted my head. You did text her, right? Miranda's face went pale. Bullseye. I had no clue if that was true. I was just throwing bait into the water, waiting to see if she'd bite. And she did. She swallowed hard, forcing out a laugh. You don't know what you're talking about. I smiled. Maybe. But imagine what the cops would think if they heard my version of things. That you were obsessed with Ashley. That you had a falling out with her right before she died. That you've been trying to cover your tracks ever since. Miranda's confidence cracked. Just a little. She knew what I was doing. But it didn't matter, because now, she was the one on the defensive. I leaned back, satisfied. So here's how this is going to work. You're gonna forget we ever had this conversation. You're gonna go back to your little life and keep my name out of your mouth. And in return, I smiled. I'll do the same for you. She glared at me, her chest rising and falling. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure a way out of this. But there wasn't one. Finally, she grabbed her purse and stood up. You're playing a dangerous game, Lucas. I smirked. Funny. I was just about to say the same to you. She didn't respond. She just turned and walked out, her heels clicking against the floor. I watched her go, taking my time finishing my drink. Miranda thought she could control me. But she just learned the hard way. I don't get controlled. And now, I had one less problem to deal with. Or so I thought. Because the real game? It was just getting started. I left the bar a few minutes after Miranda, taking my time. The night air was crisp, and for the first time in days, I felt like I had some control over this mess. Miranda wouldn't be a problem anymore. She knew I had her cornered. And someone like her? She wasn't about to risk getting dragged into a murder investigation just to spite me. Or so I thought. Because as soon as I got into my car, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I hesitated. I should have ignored it. But something told me to answer. Lucas Worthington? A deep voice, unfamiliar. I frowned. Who's asking? A pause. Then, I know what you did. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Excuse me. I kept my voice calm, but my grip on the steering wheel tightened. I saw you that night, the voice continued. Slow. Measured. I know exactly what happened to Ashley and Brad. I stayed silent, my mind racing. This was different from Miranda's game. She was fishing, bluffing, trying to control the situation. But this guy sounded sure. Too sure. "Meet me tomorrow night," the voice said. "Or I go to the cops." Click. The line went dead. I sat there, gripping my phone, staring at the black screen. What the hell just happened? Who the hell was that? And more importantly, how much did they really know? I sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Somebody was playing a game with me. But this wasn't Miranda's style. She was all about subtle manipulation, twisting words, making people think she had power over them. Whoever just called me. They weren't bluffing. I checked the call log. No caller ID. No way to trace it. My first instinct was to ignore it. But then, what if they did have something? What if they had footage, a witness, something that could actually put me away? I couldn't risk it. I exhaled sharply and texted Ralph. "Need to talk. Urgent." 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "You never text me urgent unless it's actually urgent," Ralph said. "What happened?" I hesitated. Ralph was the only person I trusted, but even with him, I had to be careful. "Someone called me. Said they know what happened to Ashley and Brad." Silence. Then, no as in they're bluffing? Or no as in they actually saw something? I rubbed my temple. They sounded sure. Too sure. Did they say what they wanted? "Meeting. Tomorrow night." Ralph exhaled loudly. "Lucas, listen to me. Do not go alone. This could be a setup. It could be the cops trying to bait you into slipping up. Or it could be some lunatic looking for money. Either way," I said, voice steady, "I need to find out what they know." He was quiet for a second. "Fine. But we do this smart. Give me the time and place once they send it. I'll have eyes nearby, just in case." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Got it." "Lucas," Ralph said, lowering his voice, "are you sure there's nothing that can tie you to this? No evidence, no loose ends?" I smirked, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "I told you. I wasn't there." Another pause. Then, "All right. Just be careful." I hung up and sat in silence, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The perfect crime. That's what I had planned. So why did it feel like the walls were starting to close in? The next day dragged on like a slow, ticking clock. I went about my usual routine, answering work emails, taking a drive, pretending everything was normal. But the weight of that phone call sat heavy in my chest. Who was this person? What did they actually know? By 8 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Another blocked number. I answered immediately. "Parking lot behind the old warehouse on 12th, the voice said. 1 hour. Come alone." Click. I exhaled slowly, setting my phone down. 1 hour. Ralph had told me not to go alone, but I didn't like the idea of backup. If this was a setup, I needed to handle it my way. Still, I shot Ralph a text. "Warehouse on 12th. 9 p.m. Just in case." Then, I grabbed my coat and headed out. By the time I pulled up to the warehouse, the streets were nearly empty. The kind of place where no one asked questions. No cameras. No witnesses. I parked and stepped out, scanning the shadows. My heartbeat was steady, controlled. If this was a trap, I was ready. A figure emerged from the darkness. A man, mid-40s, rugged face, hands in his pockets. "You came," he said. I leaned against my car. "And you are?" He smirked. "That's not important." "See, I disagree." I crossed my arms. "You claim you know what happened to Ashley and Brad. So either you're a liar, or you're a problem." His smirk widened. "Or maybe I'm both." I clenched my jaw. "What do you want?" His expression darkened. "Answers." I frowned. "What? You think I'm some random blackmailer?" He stepped closer, his voice low. No, Lucas. This isn't about money. He pulled something from his pocket. A photo. I glanced down, and for the first time, my stomach twisted. It was a picture of Ashley. Not smiling, not posing. A candid shot, taken from a distance. The man watched me carefully. Ashley was seeing Brad. But before him, she was seeing someone else. My blood ran cold. What are you saying? I asked, my voice quieter now. The man exhaled, shaking his head. Ashley had secrets, Lucas. And you're not the only one who wanted her dead. For the first time since this whole thing started, I wasn't sure if I was the one in control anymore. For a second, I just stared at the photo. Ashley, walking down a busy street. Not looking at the camera. Not posing. Someone had been watching her. I looked up at the man, keeping my expression blank. Who took this? He smirked. A friend. You don't have friends, I shot back. You have leverage. So tell me, what's the angle here? The man chuckled, shaking his head. You really don't know, do you? I clenched my jaw. Know what? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Ashley wasn't just cheating on you with Brad. I stayed silent. She was messing around with someone else before him. Someone dangerous. He glanced around before tucking the photo back into his jacket. And now that she's dead, people are asking questions. I inhaled sharply, keeping my pulse steady. Who? The man smiled, but there was no humor in it. That's the real question, isn't it? I exhaled through my nose. If you're not blackmailing me, why am I here? His smirk faded. Because we both want the same thing. I raised an eyebrow. And what's that? To find out who really killed Ashley and Brad. I laughed, but there was no amusement in it. You think I care? I think you should. His tone was sharp now. Because if the real killer thinks you had something to do with it, they might come looking for you next. I stared at him, measuring his words. He wasn't bluffing. I wasn't sure if I was being played or if I had just stumbled into something much bigger than I'd realized. Either way, one thing was clear. Ashley's death wasn't just the end of a messy affair. It was the beginning of something much worse. I sat there, staring at the man, my mind running through every possibility. Ashley wasn't just cheating with Brad, she had been involved with someone else before him. Someone dangerous. And now, with her dead, this ghost from her past was circling. I exhaled, keeping my voice steady. You're saying someone else killed them? The man nodded. And whoever it was, they wanted it messy, loud, brutal. Not just a crime of passion, this was a message. A message. I clenched my fists, forcing my pulse to stay steady. So why come to me? He gave me a knowing smirk. Because everyone already thinks you did it. And if the real killer wants to clean up loose ends, you're next on their list. I leaned back against my car, thinking it over. I had spent days assuming I was in control, that I was the one playing the game. But what if I wasn't? What if I was just another piece on the board? The man stepped back, hands in his pockets. I suggest you start looking into Ashley's past, Lucas. Because whoever did this. He turned, walking away into the shadows. They're not done yet. I watched him disappear, his words hanging heavy in the night air. Ashley had secrets. And now, those secrets were my problem. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my office, going through everything I knew about Ashley, the woman I thought I had figured out long ago. I had been so focused on her betrayal, on Brad, that I never stopped to ask if there had been anyone before him. Now I had to. Because if this mystery man was telling the truth, Ashley hadn't just been unfaithful. She had been playing with fire. And it got her burned. By morning, I had a plan. If Ashley had been involved with someone dangerous, there was only one person who might know about it. Miranda. I dialed her number. It rang twice before she answered, her voice groggy. Well, didn't expect to hear from you so soon. Cut the games, I said. I need information. She yawned. And what makes you think I'll give it to you? Because this isn't about blackmail anymore. I let my voice drop lower. Ashley had secrets, and I think one of them got her killed. That woke her up. There was a pause. Then, her voice turned serious. Meet me in an hour. Click. I set my phone down and exhaled. Ashley had played a dangerous game. Now, I was about to find out just how deep it went. An hour later, I pulled up to a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Miranda was already there, sitting in the farthest booth, oversized sunglasses hiding her face. She looked different, less smug, more unsettled. I slid into the seat across from her. Talk. She exhaled, stirring her coffee. I knew Ashley was reckless, but I didn't think it would actually get her killed. I stayed silent. She removed her sunglasses, meeting my gaze. Before Brad, there was someone else. Someone she never talked about in public. She kept it quiet. My stomach tightened. Who? Miranda hesitated, then leaned in. Darren Cole. The name sent a chill down my spine. Darren Cole wasn't just some random guy. He was dangerous. Ties to underground crime, money laundering, and people who had a habit of disappearing when they crossed him. If Ashley had gotten tangled up with him. She was stupid, Miranda muttered, shaking her head. She thought she could control him, play the same game she played with you. But Darren? He's not the kind of man you cheat on and walk away from. I clenched my jaw. Does he know about me? Miranda gave me a sharp look. He knew everything. And if he thinks you had something to do with Ashley's death. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Because I already knew. Darren Cole wasn't the type to let things go. And now, I was in his crosshairs. Darren Cole. The name alone made my blood run cold. Ashley had been reckless, but this was a death sentence. You didn't play games with a man like Cole. You didn't cheat on him. You didn't walk away. And now, with Ashley dead, someone had decided to start tying up loose ends. I just wasn't sure if I was the next loose end. I exhaled slowly, keeping my voice even. How long was she with him? Miranda looked around like she was afraid someone might be listening. A few months. She told me he was intense, but she liked the thrill. Then she got bored. Thought she could just ghost him and move on to Brad. My jaw tightened. And he let her go? Miranda hesitated. That was my answer. He pretended to let her go, she admitted. But I think he was watching her. Waiting. A pit formed in my stomach. So you're telling me the guy who kills people for sport might think I had something to do with this? Miranda swallowed hard. If he does, Lucas, you need to run. I almost laughed. Run? And do what? Go into hiding? That'll only make me look guilty. She leaned forward, her voice low. Then you need to get ahead of this. If Darren's coming for you, you have to make him believe you had nothing to do with Ashley's death. I clenched my jaw, my mind racing. I had spent days believing I was the one pulling the strings. That I had committed the perfect crime, or at least that I had gotten away with it. But what if I wasn't the one calling the shots? What if Darren Cole had been moving his own pieces this entire time? And now, the real game was about to begin. I left Miranda at the cafe, my mind racing. Darren Cole. A man with money, connections, and no conscience. If he thought I had anything to do with Ashley's death, I wasn't dealing with the cops anymore. I was dealing with something far worse. I had two choices. Run. Or face him head-on. And I wasn't the running type. That night, I got another call. Unknown number. I answered. A deep voice came through the line. Come. Controlled. Lucas Worthington. It wasn't a question. You've been asking about me, he continued. I didn't respond. That's a mistake. My grip tightened on the phone. Then maybe we should talk. Silence. Then, tomorrow. Midnight. The docks. Click. The line went dead. I exhaled, setting my phone down. This was it. The moment everything came down to. I had walked into this thinking I was the one in control. But now, I was facing a man who actually controlled things. A man who could erase me if he wanted to. But I wasn't about to go down that easily. Tomorrow, I'd meet Darren Cole. And one way or another, this game would end.
Bye.